She dialed 911 over 2 teen imposters. Then the airline owner walked on board and said one word. "You said they don't belong here," the man in the navy blazer asked, voice steady as a level horizon. The flight attendant swallowed. "Sir, I called security because their tickets look suspicious." The man's eyes flicked to the identical teenagers, brown-skinned and breathless, clutching backpacks and a pair of folded boarding passes. Then he turned the tickets over, traced the embossed logo with a thumb, and looked back up. "They're my sons. If your heart just dropped, stay with me, because this isn't just a story about a phone call. It's about what happens after the cameras stop rolling, after the headlines fade." Before we dive in, hit subscribe and tap the bell, because you don't want to miss the twist this family never saw coming. The twins, Micah and Miles, were 17 and a half, mirror images with different storms behind their eyes. Micah wore his hair in tight coils. Miles had brushed his into a low fade for the trip. Both had saved for months, summer tutoring, neighborhood lawn work, just to go watch their dad speak at a leadership summit in Boston. They hadn't flown often. Every step felt like a test. The zipper bags at security, the careful yes-sirs to agents twice their age, the way they tucked their shoulders in, like shrinking could lower suspicions. They reached the gate early. The aircraft, sleek silver belly, teal tail, gleamed as ground crew loaded suitcases into its cavern. Passengers lined up before the announcement. The twins hovered near the stanchions, single backpack each, heads tilted toward the window to soak in the idea. "We're going to surprise Dad." Boarding Group A, now welcome. They stepped forward, palms damp. The scanner blinked green for Micah, then for Miles. The flight attendant, a woman in her mid-30s with a neat bun and a smile that didn't quite meet her eyes, leaned over the podium. "Boys, can I see those again?" Sure," Miles said, handing both over. Her smile thinned. "Where did you get these?" "Online," Micah answered. We booked through the airline site." She glanced at their sneakers, their backpacks. "And your parents?" "Our dad is waiting on the other end," Miles said carefully. "We're surprising him." Her mouth twitched. "Right. Please step to the side." The line stalled. Someone sighed. A businessman checked his watch. The attendant picked up the podium phone, murmured, "Security to gate 32, and didn't look at them again. Micah felt his chest flicker. Not the first time. Not even the 10th. He fished out a photo of the 3 of them from his wallet. A candid on a pier, their father between them, heads thrown back, caught mid-laugh. "Ma'am," he tried, gentle. "We really—" "Sir," she said crisply, to a man behind them. "You can go ahead." "Ma'am," Miles said, firmer. "We're not trying to cause trouble." "Then you'll wait for security," she said. When uniformed officers appeared in the jetway's glow, the twins' ears filled with a high, panicked hum. Passengers stared. One whispered, "What did they do?" Another murmured, "Kids these days." The attendant, still holding their boarding passes, recited something about ticket irregularities, possible fraud, safety protocols. "What's the issue?" one officer asked, hands settling near his radio. "They've presented non-verifiable tickets," the attendant said. "They were evasive when questioned." "Evasive?" Miles blinked. "We answered everything." Micah met the officer's eyes. "We're here to surprise our dad. He's speaking in Boston." "Name?" the officer asked. "Jamal Hart," the twins said at the same time. The officer's brows went up. "As in?" "Yes," Micah said, voice barely more than a thread. "That one." The attendant, for the first time, faltered. Everyone in aviation knew Jamal Hart. Former aerospace engineer turned entrepreneur. Bought a struggling regional airline, rebranded it, invested in staff scholarships and community pilots. Became the face of an industry story people actually wanted to cheer for. "Okay," the officer said slowly. "But we have to verify." "That won't be necessary," a voice said, clear as a bell chime. Jamal Hart stood in the boarding lane, navy blazer, open collar, day's stubble like silver on bronze. He'd flown in early, planning to surprise the boys first, then fly with them to Boston. His eyes took them in, the tightness in Miles's jaw, the tremor in Micah's fingers, and then shifted to the attendant. "You called security on my children," he said. "It wasn't a question." Mr. Hart, sir, I thought their tickets looked like the ones we issue," he said. "On the airline I own." The gate area went silent, the kind of silence that makes the air feel heavier. The attendant's cheeks flushed. The officer stepped back. The businessman with the watch pretended to read an email. Jamal turned to his sons, voice now the softness they knew from kitchen talks. "You okay?" Miles swallowed. "Yeah." Micah tried to smile. "We're good." Jamal nodded once, then faced the attendant again. "Can you tell me," he asked quietly, "exactly what looked suspicious? The metallic line? The microprint? The logo? Or the boys holding them?" The attendant's mouth opened, then closed. Her hand trembled around the boarding passes. "Sir," one officer said, attempting neutral, "we were called for ticket fraud." "And did you ask for ID?" Jamal said. "Or did you ask for a story first?" "We followed protocol," the attendant whispered. "I followed protocol." "Did you follow protocol?" he asked. "Or a feeling?" Miles watched his father balance the room like a wing balancing turbulence, never tipping into rage, never pretending this was nothing. He was masterful that way. How he held truth and mercy in the same hand. Jamal took a breath. "We're not going to miss this flight," he said. "And my sons are going to board now." The scanner blinked green again, like a second chance. The twins walked down the jetway, limbs light and heavy at the same time. They sank into their seats as the plane filled. Across the aisle, a woman with a messy bun leaned over and whispered, "I'm so sorry you had to go through that." Micah nodded, grateful and exhausted. Minutes later, Jamal slid into the seat beside them, exhaling like he'd been holding the world on his shoulders. "Boston's got a sunrise that tastes like oranges," he said, the way he always pivoted them back to joy. "We'll land just in time." Miles looked out the window at a ground crewman adjusting cones. "Dad," he said, "you came to surprise us?" "I never miss a chance to see my boys become men," Jamal said. Then he leaned forward, eyes warm. "And I never miss a chance to fix what's broken." At cruising altitude, the seatbelt sign winked off. Jamal pressed the call button. A different flight attendant, a man with laugh lines and an honest smile, appeared. "Could you let your purser know I'd love to speak with the gate agent after we land?" Jamal asked. "Of course, Mr. Hart," the attendant said. "And, for what it's worth, those boys handled that with more grace than most adults I know." Miles and Micah glanced at each other, a private grin passing like a hand squeeze. They landed in Boston, terrain glittering on the tarmac. Inside the terminal, under vaulted glass, a woman waited, eyes red, hands clenched. It was the gate attendant from earlier. No uniform now. She'd changed into a gray cardigan. Beside her, a man in an airport blazer, station manager, shifted his weight. "Mr. Hart," the manager started, Jamal lifted a hand. "I'll speak to her." The woman swallowed. I'm sorry," she said, a rush of words chasing each other. "I judged. I was tired, and the scanner glitched, and I thought I was following a feeling that protects passengers. I see now it was a feeling that protects me. I'm sorry." Jamal listened, really listened, then nodded. "Thank you for saying that." She blinked, surprised he wasn't spitting fire. I've got a daughter," she added, voice small. "She's 8. She's mixed. I don't want her to ever feel like I made your sons feel." Jamal turned to Miles and Micah. "Boys." Micah cleared his throat. "We accept the apology," he said, voice a bit wobbly. "But can we do something that helps the next kids?" Miles jumped in. "Like training that isn't just a PDF? Real scenarios. Real talk. We could even, if you want, we could help." The attendant pressed her lips together, tears making her eyes shine. "I would show up for that." Jamal nodded. "Then that's what we'll do." He didn't fire her. He did something harder. He built something better. Within 60 days, the airline launched Seeing Clearly, a training program designed with frontline staff, community leaders, and, yes, 2 teenagers who knew what it felt like to be doubted before you spoke. They used roleplay, data, and stories. Not just "don't do this," but "here's how to see the person in front of you." Fast, fair, human. The internet, when the video surfaced, did what it always does. Roared, split, forgot. But on Gate 32, something changed for good. The woman in the gray cardigan, her name was Elise, became the first internal ambassador for the program. She told the story of her worst day, over and over, so other people wouldn't repeat it on theirs. A year later, Miles and Micah sat in the audience as their dad accepted an industry award. He thanked the board, thanked the staff, and then lifted the glass plaque toward his sons. The measure of our success, he said, voice thick, isn't just the planes we fly. It's the people we become while we fly them. Backstage, he hugged them so tight they could feel his heartbeat. Leaders build more leaders, he murmured. Promise me something. What? Miles asked. When you see a door locked, Jamal said, don't just hunt for a key. Install a window, maybe even a staircase. They laughed, then promised. The kind of promise that lodges in your bones. Years tipped forward. The twins graduated. Micah studied human factors and safety. Miles chased aeronautics and policy. Jamal slowed down a little, just enough to enjoy Saturdays that smelled like pancakes. On a bright fall morning, a crisp ache in the air, Jamal stood in his living room, tying a tie in the hall mirror. He could hear Miles in the kitchen, singing off-key as he burnt toast. He could hear Micah pacing, practicing a speech for a new pilot mentorship kickoff, words skipping, landing, taking off again. He smiled at their reflections in the glass. You boys ready? As we'll ever be, Micah grinned. Miles flipped the toast and laughed. Let's go make some windows. They headed out into the day, 3 men, 1 lesson, just in time for life to throw them the one turn no one plans for. A car, a missed stop sign, a blur. Shattered glass like ice. A siren's blue wail. The world slowed to a single long heartbeat. When it sped up, when the nurses moved with precision and the surgeon stepped out with the face no one wants to read, the twins learned the cost of being mortal. Jamal's heart, generous to a fault, had decided it could not beat forever. The memorial was quiet. Not a hashtag in sight. Just people whose lives had been softened by a policy change, a scholarship, a second chance. Elise stood in the back, hands clasped. The station manager dabbed his cheeks. A ground crewman who'd once been laid off and then rehired under Jamal's emergency fund wore his reflective vest as a badge of honor. On the screen, a montage, Jamal teaching the boys to ride bikes. Jamal falling asleep during a Pixar movie, arm draped like a net. Jamal in a hangar, running a palm along a wing like it was the cheek of a sleeping child. Micah and Miles spoke at the podium, voices blown thin by grief, thickened by resolve. They didn't promise to be him. They promised to continue him. And that is where Generation 1 ends. Not with sirens, not with rage, but with a baton pressed into 2 steady hands. The airport smelled the same as the day their father defended them. Jet fuel and peppermint from the coffee kiosk. Only now, the posters along the mezzanine had new faces. Young pilots with braids, mechanics in hijabs, dispatchers with sleeve tattoos. Under each photo, a line from Jamal's notebook. Make the invisible visible. Then make them unstoppable. Miles tightened the strap on his messenger bag. Board meeting C, he said, tilting his head toward the stairs. You ready to be the adult in the room? Micah exhaled. We're the youngest co-chairs in airline history. Adults is a stretch. They grin the way people grin when they're balancing joy and fear on the same coin. In the elevator, a woman stepped in. Late 20s, flight jacket, captain stripes so new they looked tender. She glanced at their badges and squinted, like she knew the names before she knew the faces. You're the Hearts, she said. I'm Arya, first-year captain. Your dad. His scholarship got me through flight school when my mom's hours got cut. Micah's throat tightened. Arya, he said, tasting the way gratitude changes your name. I'm glad you're here. The elevator paused on the 2nd floor. The door slid open. Elise, now director of customer care, stood on the landing, hair streaked with gray, eyes softer than the day they met. She raised a hand in a half-wave. They waved back, small ache and large warmth braided together. The boardroom hummed with conversation. Old guard on one side, arms folded like drawbridges. New talent on the other, tablets open, jawlines firm. At the head of the table sat the interim CEO, a man who had flown fighter jets and spreadsheets with equal vigor. He looked up as the twins entered and broke into a relieved smile. Gentlemen, he said, let's talk winter routes. They walked through numbers, load factors, storms. Then the agenda flipped. Community trust and training 2.0. Micah presented a new module they designed with Arya and Elise. Real-time decision support on gate tablets, bias interruption scripts, and a pause button that let any staffer halt an escalating situation to consult a digital playbook. Will it slow boarding? An old guard member asked, pin tapping. For 30 seconds, Micah said. And for years, We've accepted 30-minute delays for catering. We can accept 30 seconds for dignity. A laugh rippled. A few heads nodded. Miles pulled up a heat map of incidents across all carriers. What flared? Where? Why? We're not just fixing our own house, he said. We're building a blueprint other houses can borrow. The vote wasn't unanimous. It was better, honest. The motion passed. The room exhaled. They didn't high-five. They absorbed. On his way out, Miles' phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Nora. We've never met. I think you knew my mother, Elise. Could we talk? He frowned and looked up. Elise, he called. Did you give your number? Elise laughed. Absolutely not. Nora's my intern. She must have. Oh, there she is. A young woman hovered at the doorway. Wide eyes, tight bun, nervous energy like a hummingbird. She wore the new teal scarf with the uniform. Her name tag read Nora H. Miles noticed the initial and felt something tilt in his chest. H, he asked. She lifted her chin. Heart, she said. Through my mother. Elise stepped close, hand light on the girl's shoulder. I adopted her 6 years ago, she said, eyes shining. I wanted her to have our name. Micah's chest did that warm make thing again. The room blurred a little. He nodded, swallowing hard. Welcome to the family, he said. He meant the airline. He also meant the other thing. Over the next months, Nora shadowed them through every corner of the company. She was stubborn in the way of people who had learned the world would take only what you insist on keeping. She asked reckless questions in careful rooms. She listened ferociously. She noticed what no one else did. The way the overnight cleaners didn't have an easy path to the bus stop. The way the uniform cut restricted pregnant staff. The way the language for weather waivers was written at a college reading level. Make the invisible visible, she said once, softly, staring at Jamal's quote on the wall. And then make them unstoppable. You've been reading the margins, Miles said. She smiled without looking away. I've been writing in them. Then came the evening that would braid their generation to the next in a knot that wouldn't slip. A flight inbound from Denver hit a line of surprise storms. Nothing catastrophic, just the wrong kind of chaos. Lightning that toyed with the schedule, connections that thinned, patience that frayed. At gate 17, an exhausted father with a toddler and a stroller and one too many bags stood at the counter, voice rising like a kettle. I've been bumped twice, he snapped. I paid extra. This is ridiculous. The rookie gate agent, cheeks young, hands shaking, stared at the screen like it might scold her less than the man would. A supervisor hovered, already over his shift, attention scattered. Passengers gathered, eyes hungry for spectacle. Nora stepped forward. Let me, she said to the agent, who looked more grateful than she'd probably admit. Sir, Nora said gently to the man, you're right to be frustrated. You should have been helped 15 minutes ago. I'm listening now. He blinked. The room's temperature dropped a degree. Here's what I can do, she continued. I can protect you on this flight and pre-tag your stroller at the door so it's waiting for you when you land. I'll also move the seat beside you so your toddler isn't on your lap the whole time. She paused. And you might be owed compensation. I'll check. The man exhaled. Not the whole breath. Enough. Thank you, he muttered. Then the woman in line behind him cleared her throat. She was in her early 30s, tailored coat, purse you could buy a used car with. Excuse me, she said to Nora. I've been waiting too. I'm platinum. Are you prioritizing? She glanced at the father like he was a stack of luggage. People who don't have status now. Nora didn't flinch. I'm prioritizing fairness, she said gently. And you're next. The woman's lips thinned. What's your name? She asked, voice sharpening. I'd like to speak to your supervisor. The supervisor stepped up, weary smile. I'm here. I'm concerned about inconsistency, the woman said. I know the owner used to be very big on elevating. She chose the word carefully, certain stories. I'm glad for the progress. But some of us pay for reliability. Miles, who had been walking the concourse with Micah, arrived at the tail end of this, catching only owner and stories, and the way the woman's gaze weighed people like produce. He stepped beside Nora, not as a shield, but as an echo. Reliability, he said, is exactly what you're getting. Our reliability program promises that the first person in line is the first person helped, unless there's a safety or accessibility concern. That father meets both. You're next. And because you're platinum, I'll make sure your preferences are set correctly so we can serve you faster in the future. The woman blinked, cheeks flushing. Her eyes flicked to his badge. Saw the name. Swallowed. I didn't realize. You shouldn't have to, Micah said from his other side, soft. Our policies don't change depending on who's watching. A long beat. The woman nodded, chin tight. I appreciate the clarity, she said. It was almost an apology. Later that night, after the concourse quieted and the floor's wax reflected the lights like a lake, Nora sat with the twins in the staff lounge. A vending machine hummed. Someone had left a Tupperware of brownies with a post-it. For overnight crew. Take 2. You handled that perfectly, Micah said. Nora shook her head. I heard my mom's story in the woman's voice, she said. Not the malice. The myopic need to be somewhere fast, the certainty that the rules are written for you. And I thought, okay, break it open. Let the air in. Miles nodded. Let the air in, he repeated. Dad used to say that when a cockpit fogged up with panic. Your dad would have liked her, Nora said suddenly. Liked who? Micah asked. The woman, Nora answered. He would have said, she's the exact person we build programs for, so she doesn't have to be the worst version of herself at a gate. They fell quiet, thinking of a man who built staircases because locks annoyed him. Weeks later, the airline hosted its first Families of Flight Day. Hangar doors open, kids climbing simulated stairs, a DJ spinning a playlist that made baggage handlers dance. Jamal's old plane, retired now, sat like a gentle whale in the sun. A little girl with barrettes the color of sunrise tugged at Miles' sleeve. Are you Mr. Hart? She asked solemnly. He crouched. I am. My brother says you make windows, she whispered. Can you make one for him? He wants to see the cockpit, but they said no because he's too little. Miles laughed, surprised by sudden tears. I think we can make a little window, he said. They did. They lifted him to peek. He pressed both hands to the glass, eyes wide with the kind of wonder no algorithm can buy. As the sun lowered, painting the tarmac gold, Elise gathered the twins and Nora by the nose of the old plane. She held out a small velvet box. I've been carrying this for months, she said. I think it's time. Inside lay Jamal's tie pin, a tiny silver wing with a single onyx bead. It belongs to both of you, she said. And to everyone you train, everyone you lift, everyone who says yes to the better self. Miles fastened it to Micah's lapel. Micah moved it to Miles. They all laughed, the kind that fills a hangar and makes it feel like a chapel. That night, back home, the twins sat at their kitchen table, the same table where their dad had mapped out programs on napkins and dealt Uno cards with ruthless kindness. They pulled out a blank sheet of paper and wrote at the top, Flight Plan, Generation 3. They listed nothing fancy, just verbs. Listen, repair, teach, hire, elevate, pause, protect, build, laugh, repeat. The paper looked like a prayer. Before bed, they stood by the living room window. The city twinkled. Somewhere, a departing plane drew a white line across the sky like a promise. Do you ever feel him? Miles asked. Every time somebody chooses the longer line because it leads to a fairer outcome, Micah said. Every time a door opens and there's a staircase no one noticed yesterday. Miles leaned his forehead against the glass. Then he's everywhere, he murmured. They slept, finally, the deep sleep of people who know their story is bigger than their grief. And in the morning, the airport woke again, the smell of jet fuel and peppermint folding into a new day. Arya pre-flighted her aircraft with a steady hand. Nora coached a rookie through a tense conversation. Elise sent a memo that felt like a hug. Somewhere in a distant city, a little girl with sunrise barrettes told her class she wanted to be the person who makes windows, and the kids nodded like that was a normal job. Jamal Hart never boarded another plane, but his airline never stopped taking off. Moral: power that protects itself stays small. Power that protects others becomes legacy. If this moved you, subscribe and turn on notifications. Stories like this help more people see, then become, the good. What would you do if you watched someone get judged before they were seen?